Alright, welcome back to Shooting It Straight. I got a new pistol. Guess what it is? Now, my apologies for having gone without putting out a video for over a month now. I've had a few medical related issues, and plus, additionally trying to get contractors out here for a couple of home projects and trying to transfer funds from one bank to a new bank, which is a much bigger pain in the ass than I ever thought it would be. All that stuff has kept me quite occupied, and I'm still busy. But during that time, I finally broke down and decided it was time to add another pistol to my tiny handgun collection. Since I know many viewers are getting a little bored of seeing, the same old 2 or 3 guns in every video. And I don't blame you for that. So, what did I get? Well, it's not a Glock. Alright. Yeah, it's not a Springfield Armory either. It's, where'd I put it? Well, anyway, before you see it, it might interest you to know that my favorite hobby is actually cooking. So allow me to give you my favorite dessert recipe of all time. And I call it a delicious slice of heaven with a sweet 1911. Alright, so let's get started. Let's get started with some tabletop reviewing, then maybe later on in another video we'll take it out back and put some rounds through it. I've already put about 100 rounds through it for a function test, and I'll give you a report on that in just a minute. Now, as you briefly observed, it is a 1911 full size and in 45 auto, because all 1911s should be in 45, right? Now, I grew up with 1911s, and I've had many of them throughout the years. Everything from the basic GI models to a full-blown customized version from Cylinder and Slide way back. That tells you how old that is. And but I haven't owned a 1911 in nearly 17 years now, preferring instead to stay with Glocks and Springfield Armory XD pistols, which are great guns. But throughout that time, there's always been this kind of a void there that I think only a 1911 can fill. Now, as I was originally leaning pretty heavily toward a Springfield 1911 Defender or mil-spec, bare bones basic GI version. Aside from the fact that I just love Springfield Armory, it's also the least expensive of all the other basic 1911 packages on the market offered by the other big name companies, right? But even then, I would have had to change out the hammer and the mainspring housing to those of my preferences, which would be an extra expense. And I really didn't want to go more than $650, $700, which is about what the Springfield is going for, which is still not a bad price. I believe that every gun has a limit where it cannot possibly justify its selling price, and the 1911 is the perfect example of that. I believe that in most cases, a $650 1911 will do everything that a $3,000 1911 can do, and do it just about as good. So, while considering the Springfield, I also began to research this 1911. Now, this one was almost half the cost of that Springfield, and it didn't require me to change out anything. In my research, and I did a lot of research on this, I couldn't find any negatives reported concerning this 1911. Not a single one. Nothing but high praise. And remember, nearly half the cost of the Springfield. Alright. This is a brand new, practically still in the box, 1911 A1 Stakeout 45. Okay, Stakeout 45. It's by TISAS, which is actually pronounced TISAS in Turkey, but we're not in Turkey right now, so it's TISAS, I say. Now, Turkey's been our NATO ally since 1952 and has been producing high-quality firearms for militaries for a few decades now. And among some of the popular handguns they produce are the Gersons, the Canics, and the SARs, the SARs, and all of which have a proven track record. Now, it may surprise some to know that the 1911 variances by TISAS have been around in the United States here for quite some time now. Now, they're certainly not the new kid on the block here, but they've been what is sometimes called sleepers, okay? Not a lot of attention was garnered for a long time. But here in the last couple of years, the TISAS 1911 models have skyrocketed to the apex of budget 1911s. You know, the reputation of the inexpensive TISAS 1911 is alive and well today. You know, people are recognizing the high quality. They're only a budget gun in the sense of cost. Their quality and performance is on par, I think, so far with Colt, Springfield, and others. And in fact, some are better at it. These TISASs are better built than some of those guns and more reliable than some of them. I know because I've had them. TISAS USA and SDS Imports recently bolstered sales and marketing, updated the models, expanded the line of models, improved quality, and now offers a TISAS lifetime service plan. Now, all of this sounds very much like what Springfield Armory did with the old Croatian-made HS-2000 pistols before they became rebranded as the XD line of pistols. I will say that I just recently inspected, evaluated, and performed what I've always called an owl shit smoothing procedure on my friend's TISAS 1911 A1 US Army at his request. And I became so impressed with its performance back here in the range, the quality of the material, the fit and the finish, and its price, that I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to get one myself. I mean, imagine getting a new 1911 that has proven to be just as good as a Springfield mil-spec, but at nearly half the price. My TISAS 1911 here is not the GI or the U.S. Army model, nor is it the service or tanker variation. This is the Stakeout 45 model. The other basic models have the old traditional spur hammer, whereas this one has the ring hammer or commander style type hammer. And it has the cold hammer forged stainless steel barrel, and most importantly it has an upswept beaver tail grip safety, as opposed to the usual GI models with a thin tang. And yes, there's a difference between a beaver tail and a tang. If it doesn't have this and it just comes from the factory with the small tang, it's a tang. It's not a beaver tail. This is a beaver tail. Now, to me, this is an important feature. Now, I've never experienced hammer bite with any 1911, but during recoil, the bottom edges of that tang begins to dig into my thumb web, after a short while, eventually drawing, you know, a light smudge of blood there. The upswept beaver tail instantly cures all that, while at the same time it allows for a slightly higher grip. Now, here's an interesting point. I have not been able to find a single YouTube video yet featuring this particular TISAS 1911A1 model. No testing, no unboxing, no tabletop reviews. Now, there's plenty of them out there on the TISAS 1911s, but for the U.S. Army and the service and all that, and the tanker and everything else, but for the Stakeout, I don't see any of them. And it says, it's stamped Stakeout right here on the slide. I haven't been, there may be one or two out there, I don't know, but I haven't seen it. And that's amazing, considering this model should be their best seller, because it's definitely the best bargain. So you'll be seeing it for the first time right here on this video. You know, SDS Imports took control of all TISAS models sometime in mid-2022 and began to implement significant improvements in the function, quality, and materials used, and the features, which made an already superb 1911 even better, while still keeping the consumer costs low enough for virtually anyone to be able to afford a decent 1911 today. But let's continue to examine this one, all right? Well, first, why don't we briefly look at the case and the contents, which is normally something I hate to watch on a new gun review or unboxing, simply because they're just so boring most of the time. But I'll go through this very briefly. Okay. Comes in a good, sturdy, lockable, waterproof case. You can put locks right here, right? There's all your paperwork back there. Typical paperwork, no need to go through all that, you know what it is. Yada yada. Alright. You got your nylon bristle cleaning brush. Alright. This is nice. I don't generally use them, but they're nice. Takedown tool for the bushing wrench. And that comes in there. That's handy. The federally mandated action lock. Now, this one happens to be a trigger lock. You know, you can get them in the bicycle chain locks too, but TISAS supplies it with the trigger lock, and that's a federal requirement. All right. You have your that's enough of that. You have your two 8-round magazines, blued. I'll get into this in just a second. So pretty much the box and the contents is all you really need, and nothing you don't need. Now let's look at the gun and the magazines. All right. This is a cerakote finish, which I'm not necessarily a fan of. However, this finish is applied very evenly. It's very well done. Now, this model is a black cerakote finish, whereas the 1911A1 U.S. Army and similar basic models have the more gray, greenish hue to them, you know. In fact, this doesn't really even look like a cerakote application to me. It really doesn't. It is beautifully done, surprisingly enough. Now, I've been told that TISAS models with the cerakote finish, and not all 1911s from TISAS have cerakote finish, but the ones that do, they're actually parkerized first, or phosphated. They have a phosphated surface. Then the cerakote finish is applied on top of that parkerized finish. Now, I've not confirmed this through TISAS, but it does make sense. All right. Cerakote is simply a sprayed-on ceramic finish. Now, I don't care for cerakote because in my previous observations, it tends to crack or flake off and wears quickly. But, on the other hand, it does offer superior corrosion resistance. And with TISAS, you still have that parkerization, at least in theory. All right, there was a tag on this trigger here when I got it. Once I clipped that shit off right quick. There's a tag that was on the trigger. Let's look at that. Forged 1911, 45 ACP. So it's a forged frame and slide, not cast, like a lot of people say. The barrel is cold hammer forged steel. What else? All right. These are standard 1911 magazines. HBM, hardened before machined. Okay. HBM, hardened before machining. This means that the steel goes through the hardening processes before it goes to the final machining. Okay. Oh, damn, I hit that. Sorry. Knocked you off balance, didn't I? Now, this is important. Okay. That process is important for both good fitment and accuracy, since the hardening process after the final machining can sometimes create uneven or slightly warped areas close to the edges of the components, which may affect accuracy to a degree. So TISAS does it backwards. Okay, they put it through the hardening process, and then they do the final machining on there, so nothing is going to warp at all. All right. It's got a standard recoil spring assembly with a typical 16-pound spring, or at least it feels like it. I noticed that hammer, when you thumb cock it, is pretty stiff. All right, that tells me that it's got the standard 23-pound mainspring in here, and that's what it's supposed to have, is a 23-pound spring in there. I have checked the important dimensions and tolerances already with my calipers here, digital calipers. And found that the gap between this might be easier if maybe I can point it out to you. I don't know. No, you can't see that. But anyway, in here at the feed ramp, which is polished feed ramp. You're not going to be able to see that, but the gap between the lowest point of the chamber rim, the lowest point of the chamber rim down here at the bottom, where it flares out, all right, and the top of the frame's feed ramp. You know, the feed ramp goes up, and at the very top of that, that distance is within specs. Okay, since it is not less than 1/32 of an inch. Okay, and the ramp angle, the frame ramp angle is within specs as well at 31.5 degrees for normal or for full size guns. Smaller guns have a different angle. All right, this particular model comes with two 8-round blued Metgar magazines. Now, for those of you who may not know, Metgar magazines are some of the best 1911 magazines you can get, and this has been proven for well over 40 years. The follower here is polymer, but it does include, and you're not going to be able to see it here. I almost didn't see it myself. But right here, this ledge right here that goes on the inside and pushes up your slide stop to hold the slide open on the last shot, they have molded a piece of flat steel in there. So that surface is not polymer, it's actually steel that's hitting up against your slide stop. The slide stop bump inside here. Alright. And now, of course, I also got a 3-pack of Wilson Combat ETM 8-rounders. This is a black oxide finish. I ordered this before my gun even got here. You know, I've used Wilson Combat mags for many years with great success. Now, I prefer the blued or the black oxide magazines, so that way I can see the brass or nickel case, whichever one. But I can see the brass cases against this dark magazine, and that helps me to quickly see how many rounds are remaining in my mag. And this is a very smooth as silk. I mean, this thing is absolutely smooth. Just something you would expect from Wilson's, you know. All right, let's go ahead then while we got this, and let's do a quick check for magazine to gun compatibility. See if the magazine that's supplied with the gun is going to be compatible or not. Okay. Slide closed. Now it should lock it. The magazine should lock the slide open. And it does. Now it should drop free. Drop free. Well, I'm going to hold it up a little bit higher, but alright, fine. Now, does it drop free when the slide is closed as well? It should. And it does. Alright. So, the magazines, and I've done that with both of them, the magazines are compatible with the gun, with the magazines that they supplied. So we got that going. All right. Now the magazine release button is going to be fairly stiff at first. Most of them are. And my guess is, it's been a long time, but my guess is that it'll eventually lighten up to a degree. You know, or you can just install a weaker release spring if you want to. All right. It's got very positive thumb safety. Engage, disengage. The checkered walnut double diamond grip panels. You know, they got just the right bite. Now these are actually Turkish walnut grips, by the way. But you know, the grips are good enough to keep a grip when wet, yet not enough to shred your clothes, you know, when you're carrying concealed. We have a straight steel. This is steel, it's not plastic. Flat mainspring housing, which I prefer. The A1s, the original A1s has the arched type, right? This model comes with the Commander style hammer, which I much prefer over the typical spur hammer because there's less chance of hammer bite, less chance of snagging, things like that. It also comes standard with a lowered ejection port and flared back. Okay, that's going to give you better ejection. Now the sights, they're black on black sights. They are serrated sights, both front and back sights. They're an improvement over the old GI bump sights. These are a little taller and a little bit better. It's not what you want for precision shooting, but they're far better than those old ones. And they are serrated. Now, as I always do, you know, it's hard for me to shoot black targets, like my black steel targets, with a gun that has black on black sights, and I can't see shit. So I always use the old Testors enamel, and take a toothpick and put a drop or two right there. Let it cure overnight, and I'm good to go on that. All right, now I'm gonna do a trigger pull. I don't usually care about triggers, but this one I need to tell you something. All right. You see me shaking? I'm old, brother. All right. That trigger pull it's kind of rough, okay? It's heavy. Now I don't use a trigger gauge, but my experience tells me that trigger pull is somewhere in the range of 6+ pounds. Now, and you know I'm no trigger queen. I don't make a big deal out of triggers. For the most part, I don't care about them. Before 1911, this is an unusually heavy trigger pull. I'm thinking that with time it'll smooth out and perhaps lighten up just a bit. I'm fairly confident of that. If it does, I'll be happy. You know, if not, I'll learn to shoot with it. It's not hard enough to throw you off target, but you know, it's enough to go, damn, is this thing going to shoot? Is it going to shoot? You know, you're not. Most people that shoot 1911s aren't used to that. Right? But overall, you know, it really looks good. Everything fits flush. It looks blended. It seems to dry function properly. In other words, everything works good. Everything looks good. No machining marks in there at all. I've taken it apart and examined it. No machining parts. No sharp edges. Nothing like that. The balance is great. It feels good in the hand. All the controls function perfectly. All of this for, let me just say, barely, and I do mean barely, more than $400, people. $400, you know. But when I first got this, which was only a few days ago, oil was literally oozing from every seam on this gun. When I dry fired it, like I just did, and the snap cap is still in there, when I did that, I mean to tell you, oil splattered everywhere, in my face, everywhere. It was seeping, oil was seeping from the thumb safety for 2 days, seeping out from here. I mean, seeping out from everywhere. But, you know, sometimes that's normal packing procedures for a new gun, because they don't know if that gun's going to sit on a shelf for 2 or 3 years. They don't know, and they have to preserve it. And that's why they depend on you to get it home and take it apart and clean everything out. I took it apart, I wiped all of the oil off, bone dry. I then inspected everything, calipers and all that, made sure everything was within spec and within the tolerance that it's supposed to be in. And I put one single drop of oil down each, one single drop of gun oil down each rail here on the frame, not the slide, the frame. One on that rail, one on that rail. That's it. Nothing else got lubed. I then loaded both magazines up to capacity, just like I've got this Wilson magazine loaded to capacity, and let them sit for 2 days to get a preset. Let that spring get a preset in there. All right, then I took the gun and the mags out back, shot 92 rounds, because I previously shot my friend's 1911 surface thing I was telling you about. I just shot his, and I put one magazine through his, so that left me with 92 rounds. So I shot 92 rounds of S&B 230 grain FMJ. Not a single failure or hiccup. It ran as smooth as a Rolls Royce. Ejection was strong and fairly consistent. I didn't get any brass to face bitch slaps. BTF, or brass to face, it used to be a very typical problem with stock 1911s, unless you had some work done to the extractor and some work done to the ejection port, because they would come straight back and hit you right in the face. Consistent reliability, so I'll need to put many more rounds through it, including steel case ammo, in order to make a fair determination and assessment. But so far, it's looking pretty damn good. And perhaps after 300 or 400 rounds of FMJ, I'm going to run some jacketed hollow point defensive ammo through it, and even a few old plus P loads, you know. Insofar as detailed specs of the gun itself are concerned, let's see if I can help clear up any questions. All right. Now, I want you to know this is per TISAS. This is not per Antonius. This is per TISAS. It's on their website too. It does handle plus P loads, so you can use them. Naturally, it should go without saying that plus P loads should not be a constant or steady diet for any handgun, as it might eventually cause excessive stress on, you know, key components. It could burn out the barrel much sooner, and it will greatly shorten the life of certain springs. And of course, reloaded ammo will void the warranty altogether. That's the same as any other gun manufacturer. All right, as of November 1st, 2022, TISAS no longer uses MEM parts, metal injection molding. They no longer use MEM parts, with the exception of the recoil spring plug. This was one of the several improvements made by SDS imports. Prior to this date, most guns from TISAS, like all other guns from all other manufacturers, except certain few, were manufactured using at least some MEM parts. All right. Now, For example, that $650 Springfield mil-spec has numerous MIM components, whereas this $400 Stakeout has 0 MIM components. And I've said this before, there's nothing wrong with MIM components. So if you've got MIM components in your gun, which you probably do, don't worry about it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not going to break. So far, I have to say that I'm extremely impressed with this 1911. As far as I can see, it's built just as good as any Colt, and it's just as reliable and solid, and I've owned several Colt 1911s. I have no plans to change anything about the gun at all because it doesn't need anything modified or changed. The sights are fine. There's no chance of hammer bite or tang bite because it has a nice beaver tail. I don't need a flared magazine well because I'm proficient enough to do it without one. And I don't need any extended doodads or add-ons. I keep it simple because simple works better. Okay, so come on back and join me in the next video where we'll run through some defensive ammo, and we'll also discuss some of the myths and or beliefs relating to the 1911 that I think you'll be interested in hearing. But until then, thanks for watching this video. I'm Antonius, and I've been shooting it straight. I'll meet you.